Something was already in the house. Have you ever been completely alone in your house late at night? Not just quiet alone, but the kind of silence that feels thick, like the walls are listening. The kind where even your own breathing feels too loud. The kind that makes you wonder if you really are alone or if something is just waiting for you to notice it. That was the night it started for me. The night my parents drove away down the long, dark road with their taillights fading into red dots. The night the house suddenly felt 10 times bigger than it ever had before, like it was stretching now that no one else was there to fill it. I stood in the doorway and watched their car disappear, my phone in my hand, pretending I was calm, pretending I wasn't already feeling that weird twisting in my stomach that happens when your instincts are trying to warn you about something you don't understand yet. And the moment the engine sound vanished, the silence rushed in so fast it almost felt physical, like someone had slammed a door on the world. Our house sat at the edge of a quiet suburban street, trees lining the sidewalks, streetlights glowing a dull orange, every other home dark and still. And suddenly it felt like I was the only living thing inside a giant hollow shell. I locked the door behind me, not because I was scared yet, but because that's what you do when you're home alone. You lock the doors, you check the windows, you act responsible, even if you're secretly excited about having the place to yourself. I went through the house, flipping on lights, making it feel alive again, walking past the living room, the kitchen, the hallway that led to the bedrooms, and everything looked normal, exactly the way it always had, except there was this feeling, like something was off by just a tiny amount, like a picture hanging slightly crooked that you can't stop staring at. I told myself it was just nerves, just the usual home alone jitters, and I grabbed some snacks, went upstairs to my room, and put on a movie, something loud and dumb so I wouldn't think about how quiet the rest of the house was. For a while it worked. The movie played, the lights were on, my phone buzzed with messages from friends, and I almost forgot that I was the only one there. Almost. Because right as I was starting to relax, I heard it. A sound. Not a bang, not a crash, not something obvious, but something subtle, something soft. Something that didn't belong, like the faintest creak of a floorboard coming from somewhere downstairs. I paused the movie. The house went silent again. I waited. Nothing. I laughed at myself under my breath, feeling stupid, and hit play again. 10 seconds later, the sound came back, longer this time, a slow, dragging noise, like something heavy being shifted across the floor. My heart started beating faster, not full panic yet, but definitely not calm anymore, and I muted the TV, listening hard. The sound stopped. I sat there, staring at my bedroom door, telling myself it was just the house settling, just pipes, just old wood, just anything except what my imagination was starting to whisper. Then I heard footsteps. Slow. Careful. Not loud enough to be someone running, not soft enough to be nothing. Someone was walking in my house. I grabbed my phone, every hair on my arm standing up, and I called out, my voice trying to sound normal even though it was. Mom. No answer. Dad. Nothing. Just silence so deep it felt like it was swallowing the sound of my own voice. I knew they were gone. I knew I was alone. And yet, I also knew something was moving downstairs. I opened my bedroom door just a crack, the hallway light spilling out, and I listened, holding my breath so I wouldn't make a sound. From below, I heard it again. A slow step. Then another. Not on the stairs. In the living room. My mind raced through every normal explanation. Intruder, animal, house noises. But none of them fit the feeling crawling up my spine. This deep, cold certainty that whatever was down there wasn't something that could be explained that easily. I didn't see anyone when I finally worked up the courage to look down the stairs. The living room was empty. The couch. The TV. the dark windows reflecting my own terrified face back at me. But something had changed. The front door, which I knew I had locked, was now slightly open, just a thin line of darkness cutting into the warm yellow light of the hallway, like the house itself had blinked. I stood frozen, staring at that tiny gap, knowing with every part of me that I had not opened that door. And in that moment, I realized the worst possible truth. Whatever had made those footsteps, whatever had moved through my house, whatever had unlocked that door, it hadn't come from outside. It had already been inside. It knew my name. I stood at the top of the stairs staring at that open front door for so long that my legs started to shake, the thin line of blackness between the door and the frame looking less like a crack and more like a mouth, waiting. And in that moment I had this horrible thought that the house wasn't just open, it was inviting something. I slowly backed away, my heart pounding so loud I was sure whatever was in the living room could hear it, and I closed my bedroom door as quietly as I could, locking it even though I knew how useless that probably was, because whatever had unlocked the front door could probably open a bedroom door too. I pressed my ear to the wood, listening. At first there was nothing, just the faint hum of the house, the soft ticking of the hallway clock, and then a whisper, so soft I almost thought I imagined it. Not a word yet, just breath, like someone standing on the other side of the door, breathing through their teeth. I stepped back, every nerve in my body screaming at me to run, but there was nowhere to go, no window I could jump from, no second exit, just me and whatever was out there. Then it spoke. My name. Not loud. Not angry. Just calm and slow, the way someone says your name when they already know you, when they've said it 1,000 times before. Eli. My blood went cold. No one outside my family knew I was home alone. No one else should even be in the house. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The whisper came again, closer now, right against the door. Eli, you left the door open. The lie made it worse because I knew I hadn't. I backed away until I hit my bed, my phone clutched in my hand, and I finally tried calling my parents, my fingers shaking so badly I almost dropped it. No signal. The screen just said, no service, even though I had full bars 10 minutes ago. The whisper laughed. Not a normal laugh. Not human. It sounded wet, like something breathing through water. Phones don't work here. The doorknob slowly began to turn. Not fast. Not forced. Just a gentle, patient twist, like whatever was out there knew it had all the time in the world. I ran to the window and tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge, like it had been sealed shut, and when I looked down at the street below, my heart nearly stopped. The neighborhood was gone. No houses. No streetlights. No trees. Just endless black fog stretching in every direction, like my house was floating in the middle of nowhere. The whisper grew louder. Eli, come downstairs. The door started to creak open, and something cold touched my ankle. The house wasn't a house anymore. The moment something cold wrapped around my ankle, I screamed and kicked, stumbling forward as I felt fingers, not hands. Not anything shaped like a normal person, long, thin fingers sliding over my skin like they were tasting me. And when I looked down, there was nothing there, no shadow, no shape, just that awful sensation of being touched by something I couldn't see. The bedroom door slammed open behind me. I spun around, expecting to see someone, but instead the hallway was wrong. It was longer than it should have been, stretching away into darkness. The walls warped like they were breathing, and the whisper that had said my name now came from everywhere at once. You shouldn't have looked. The lights flickered, and in each flash I saw something standing at the end of the hall, tall and thin, its outline just barely human enough to trick your brain. But every time the light went out it got closer, like it was moving only when I couldn't see it. I ran. I didn't even think. I just ran down the hallway, down the stairs, my feet barely touching the steps as the house groaned around me like it was waking up. The living room was unrecognizable. The walls were stained dark like they had been bleeding for years, the furniture twisted and stretched, and the windows didn't show the street anymore, just swirling fog and faces pressing against the glass from the other side, mouths open, eyes wide, all silently screaming. I tried the front door. It wouldn't open. It was gone. Just a solid wall where the door used to be, like the house had erased it. The whisper laughed again, deeper now, layered, like many voices speaking together. "You're home now." I backed away, shaking, and I felt something brush against my back, something cold and heavy, and when I turned I saw it for the first time, not fully, not clearly, but enough to know it was wrong. It was tall, taller than the ceiling, bent and folded to fit inside the room, its skin stretched tight over something that wasn't bone, its face a blur of too many eyes and not enough mouth, and yet somehow it was smiling at me. It reached out. The room went dark. And suddenly, I was standing back in my bedroom like nothing had happened. The lights were on. The walls were normal. The door was closed. For one perfect second, I thought it was over. Then I saw the writing on the wall, carved deep into the paint, right above my bed. It said, "You never left." It was pretending to be my family. I stared at those words on the wall until my eyes burned, my mind refusing to accept them even though every part of me knew they were true. Because if I never left, then whatever I had just seen wasn't a nightmare and it wasn't a hallucination. It was the house showing me what it really was. My phone buzzed. The sound made me jump so hard I almost dropped it, and when I looked down, my heart twisted into something cold and tight. Mom was calling. I answered it so fast my finger slipped. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking, desperate to hear something normal. "Eli, sweetheart," her voice said, warm and calm, too calm. "We forgot something. We're coming back." Relief flooded me so fast it almost hurt, until I realized something was wrong. There was no road noise. No engine. No movement. Just her voice, perfectly clear, like she was standing right beside me. "Where are you?" I asked. "In the living room," she replied. The line went dead. I didn't want to go downstairs. Every instinct told me not to, but the thought of my mom being down there, maybe hurt, maybe scared, pulled me forward because that's how it works. Fear fights fear and sometimes loses. I opened my door. The hallway was normal again, but too normal, like a set built to look like a house, and when I reached the stairs I could hear voices below. My parents. Laughing. Talking. Like nothing was wrong. I crept down, every step feeling like I was walking into a trap, and when I reached the bottom I saw them. Mom and Dad standing in the living room, smiling at me. But their smiles didn't reach their eyes. "Eli," Dad said, "come here." I took a step back. "Something's wrong with you," I whispered. Mom tilted her head. "Don't be silly, we're home." Behind them, the walls pulsed just slightly, like something huge was breathing inside them, and I realized the truth so suddenly it made me feel sick. It wasn't pretending to be my family. It was using their shapes, their faces, their voices, to get me close. Mom took a step forward. Her shadow stretched too long across the floor, and it moved differently than she did. It wanted me to come with them. I backed away as Mom's shadow slid across the floor toward me, stretching and twisting like it was alive, and when I looked back up at her face, her smile was still there, but her eyes were empty, black like holes punched through her skull, and I knew whatever was wearing her wasn't even trying to hide anymore. "Eli," she said softly, You're scared because you don't understand yet. Dad stepped beside her, his movements just a fraction too slow, like his body was being controlled by something learning how to walk. This house chooses families, he said. It chose us, now it's choosing you. The walls around them rippled, and behind the thin layer of wallpaper I saw shapes moving, pressing from the inside, as if dozens of things were trapped inside the house and watching me through its skin. I want my real parents, I whispered. Mom's mouth opened wider than it should have. They're safe, she said. We keep them safe. The way she said keep made my stomach drop. The room suddenly filled with whispers, hundreds of voices overlapping, all saying my name in different tones, different ages, different emotions, like every kid who had ever been in this house was still here, still trapped, still calling out. Dad reached for me. Come with us, Eli. You don't have to be alone anymore. I felt something brush against my back again, something unseen and cold, nudging me forward toward them, toward the thing wearing my parents' faces, and I realized the house wasn't just hunting me. It was hurting me. I looked past them at the hallway behind, and for a split second I saw a door that shouldn't have been there, glowing faintly, like an exit, like a chance. I didn't think. I ran. Their voices screamed my name as I dove past them, the air turning icy, hands grabbing at my clothes, my hair, my skin. And I barely made it through that glowing doorway before it slammed shut behind me. Everything went dark. And then I heard children crying, the kids who never went home. The darkness smelled old, like dust and wet wood, and when my eyes adjusted I realized I wasn't in my house anymore. Not the one I knew, not even the twisted version of it, but something underneath it, a place that felt like it had been growing in secret for years. Dim lights glowed along a narrow hallway, flickering like dying candles, and the crying was coming from all around me, soft at first, then louder, then full of fear. And as I walked forward I saw doors lining the walls, each one marked with a name scratched into the wood. Names of kids. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Some looked fresh. Some were so old they were barely readable. I found mine. Eli. It was already there. I pushed one of the doors open and inside was a small room, bare except for a bed and a child sitting on it, hugging their knees, their face streaked with tears. They looked up at me. They looked exactly like me. I don't want to be here anymore, he whispered. My chest tightened. What is this place? He shook his head. This is where it puts us when we don't listen, when we don't become part of the family. Behind him, the wall bulged outward, like something huge was pressing against it from the other side. They don't let us die, he said. They don't let us leave, they just keep us. Suddenly, the crying stopped. All at once, every door in the hallway creaked open. And I felt the house breathing, the house was feeding. The silence after all the crying stopped was so thick it felt like it was pressing against my ears. And as every door in that endless hallway slowly opened at once, I realized that the house wasn't just showing me the children who had been trapped here. It was letting me hear them for the first time. Like it had finally decided I was ready to understand what kind of place this really was. A place that didn't kill people, didn't let them go, but kept them in a state between living and forgetting, so it could feed on their fear forever. The other version of me was still sitting on the bed behind me, whispering things I couldn't quite hear anymore. And when I turned back toward the hallway, I saw all the kids stepping out of their rooms, moving slowly, quietly, their eyes hollow, their faces pale, all of them staring straight at me like I was the only thing that existed in this nightmare world. And the worst part was that none of them looked angry, none of them looked violent, they just looked tired, exhausted in a way that only comes from being scared for too long. This house eats what we feel, one of them said in a flat voice, like he had repeated it so many times it had lost all meaning. It eats fear and loneliness, And the moments when you think nobody is coming to save you, and when you're home alone, that's when you're the most alone, so that's when it's the hungriest. The walls pulsed again, and I felt it. A deep, slow heartbeat traveling through the floor beneath my feet, like I was standing inside something alive that was far bigger than any building. And suddenly I knew that the village outside, the street, the neighbors, all of it was just part of the same thing, just more of its body, more rooms to hide its food inside. "You're new," another kid whispered. "That's why it's still pretending to be nice." The air around me grew colder, and somewhere far away I heard my mother's voice again, calling my name in that soft fake way, promising safety, promising warmth, promising that if I just went back upstairs everything would be okay. And I knew that was the trap, because this place didn't want me to run, it wanted me to choose to stay. Then the floor cracked beneath my feet, and something started climbing up from below, the thing beneath the house. The floor split open with a sound like wood screaming, long jagged cracks tearing through the hallway as if the house itself was peeling back its skin. And from the darkness below, I felt something rising, something enormous and slow and patient, something that had been waiting under all of this for so long that it had forgotten what time even meant. And every child in the hallway stepped back at once, like they had seen this happen before, like they knew what was coming next. A deep breath rolled up from the darkness, hot and damp, carrying the smell of old rooms and forgotten memories, and suddenly I understood that the house wasn't just a place where this thing lived. The house was what this thing was, every wall and every door and every staircase just another piece of its body, another way for it to reach out and touch the people it was feeding on. "It's waking up," one of the kids whispered, their voice shaking in a way that made me realize that even after everything they had been through, they were still afraid of this moment more than any other. And when the shadows below the floor began to move, twisting into shapes that looked almost like arms, I felt that cold pressure again on my back, pushing me forward, not toward safety, not toward escape, but toward the center of the thing that wanted me most. The voices of my parents came back, layered on top of each other now, dozens of them speaking at once, telling me how proud they were, how they missed me, how they just wanted to hug me one more time, and I could hear myself wanting to believe them, because when you're alone long enough, even a lie that sounds like love can feel real. The hallway started to tilt, doors slamming shut as the kids were dragged back into their rooms by unseen hands, their fingers clawing at the floor as they disappeared one by one. And I realized that whatever chance there had been to save them was gone, swallowed by the house as easily as everything else. The crack in the floor opened wider, and something with too many eyes began to rise. The house never lets you go. The thing that rose out of the broken floor did not have a shape that made sense to the human mind, because it was not built to be seen, only to be felt, only to exist in the space between fear and memory. And as its many eyes opened one by one like windows lighting up in a dead neighborhood, I realized that every house in the street above, every room, every hallway, every locked door, was just another part of its body, another way for it to watch and wait and feed. It did not roar. It did not attack. It simply looked at me. And in that gaze, I felt every moment I had ever been alone. Every night I had ever laid in bed wondering if anyone would come if I called for help. Every time I had felt invisible, and I understood the truth that made my stomach drop. The house did not hunt people who were weak. It hunted people who were lonely, because loneliness was the doorway it needed to get inside you. "You belong here," it whispered. Not with a mouth, but with the walls themselves, with the air, with my own thoughts. "You always have." I thought of my parents, my real parents, wherever they were, trapped or gone or maybe already part of this thing, and I felt something break inside me, something that had been holding me together. And in that moment the house leaned closer, the floor bending toward me like it was bowing, ready to swallow me whole. But fear can do strange things. Sometimes it freezes you. Sometimes it makes you scream. And sometimes, just sometimes, It gives you one last moment of clarity. I ran. Not away from the thing, not toward any door, because I knew there were no doors left, but toward the one thing the house couldn't understand. The children. Their fear. Their anger. Their memory. I grabbed the door with my name on it, the one marked Eli, and I tore it open, pulling the other version of me into the hallway. And for a split second I felt something rip, like a page being torn out of a book, and the house screamed, a sound so deep and so wide it shook every wall. All the doors flew open. The kids poured out. And for the first time, the house wasn't feeding. It was choking. The lights exploded, the walls cracked, and I felt myself falling, not down but away, like I was being pushed out of a dream I had been trapped in for years. When I woke up, I was on the floor of my living room, the real one, sunlight pouring through the windows, the front door wide open, my parents standing over me, screaming my name. The house was normal again. No cracks. No whispers. No shadows. They told me I had been unconscious for only a few minutes. They said nothing strange had happened. But sometimes at night, when everything is quiet and I'm alone in my room, I hear the house breathing, slow and patient, and I know the truth. It didn't die. It just went back to waiting. Because somewhere, someday, another kid will be home alone. And it will be hungry again.